live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Wednesday evening, a jam-packed show today, to say the very least. Kicking off the month strong. The month of May is here. It's pleasant enough that I can have my deck door open today. It is a very nice day outside today in the Midwest for once, and we have got a lot of things to talk about today. Dom is actually going to start the show here in just a couple of minutes. He's got a review of a movie that he caught in Chicago, so he's going to touch on this. It's called The People's Joker, and I'm interested to know more about this because I know next to nothing about it. So Dom is going to lead the discussion on that, own the discussion, I should say. He will do a solo review of that to start the show. We're also going to be talking Challengers, brand new movie from Luca Guadagnino. Looking forward to talking about that movie too, because that movie topped the box office this weekend. Didn't make a ton of money, but is definitely the kind of movie that we don't see get made a lot anymore, and also the kind of movie that just doesn't top the box office. So I'm excited to talk about this movie for sure. And then Joe unearthed this. I got to read most of this. This was a long fucking piece about Dwayne Johnson's new movie, Red One. I think I'll leave it at that because there's a lot to unpack with this $250 million movie, and a lot of things that are going on with that movie. It's supposed to come out, I think, during the holiday season this year. So we're going to dive into that to end the show. We'll start with you, Joe. You came prepared today. You got the headband. You got the tennis court background. Holy shit, Thomas, you are looking good today. I didn't even thank you for that in the green room, so thank you.
I didn't unmute myself on OBS, so I went on that whole thing right there. Basically, I dressed up like this because I'm really happy and excited. I just got back my comprehensive exam, the thing I need to pass, basically, in order to graduate. I graduated. It inspired me to dress up for this review and also make a new thumbnail for Sleepless with Steve, which is what Steve just thanked me for. Anyways, that is basically me in a nutshell this week. I'm having so far a very good week.
Congratulations to you, my friend. Isn't it amazing what you can do when you're not constantly stressed?
Yeah.
You know,
right?
isn't it amazing how inspiration comes back when you're not constantly stressed? So tip of the cap to you, my friend. Really happy for
Thank you
and your accomplishments. You work your ass off beyond this show, well beyond this show. And I know like when it comes to school, like, you know what I mean? People see the grades and everything, or you show the grades off, you know what I mean, to your family and friends and stuff like that. They don't see the countless hours it took to get those grades and to get that accomplishment, my friend. So I hope you got a really nice frame for that diploma that you are about to receive.
I hope so too.
For sure. I want to hope you hang that. I hope you got to place a mantle either or over or above your workstation over here. Which reminds me, I should probably hang my bachelor's degree. That being said, Dominic, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing all right. Things are heating up outside and at work, and we're gonna be busy. It's gonna be a lot busy, but for the most part, it's all right. Coming out of my cage, and I've been doing just fine. Okay, I didn't mean to say that. But for the most part, it's pretty good, and yeah, a really, really busy weekend. In fact, should I just go into the People's Joker thing? Because
if you'd like to, if you would like to. Yeah.
No, yeah, because Saturday was it felt like at the Music Box Theater in Chicago, in the north side of Chicago, Lakeview. It felt like the whole Chicago trans community was there, and that was awesome. And everyone came out for Vera Drew's The People's Joker. Joe, I'm so sorry I didn't give you any actuals to put on the screen. But
I already got you, brother. Don't worry about
oh
it.
yeah, hell yeah.
Oh, you're the best, man.
Yeah, but Vera Drew is a fascinating individual who has worked in a technical roles, digital imaging technician, as well as an editor on shows such as Nathan For You, Tim and Eric, Comedy Bang Bang, Who is America, etc. So she has been in this world for quite a while. At the Q&A that I went to, she said that she was 35. Um, but this is her very first film in a directorial or acting role, I think. I'm not exactly sure on that, but regardless, this is her big debut as a filmmaker. And man, The People's Joker is absolutely something else. If you saw this trailer in isolation without knowing any of the story around it, you'd be like, this looks like shit. And it doesn't look great. Let me say that. But in the context of this whole thing is in front of a blue screen / green screen, filmed in 5 days on like the shoeiest of shoeiest string budgets. This is a true indie film. Make no mistake. And in fact, it's actually quite impressive just how much you can do as an indie filmmaker these days, particularly when you're someone like her who knows the technical aspects. Again, digital imaging technician as well as editor. She knows a few tricks up her sleeve. So this was absolutely her passion project, and without a doubt, her story. It's not semi-autobiographical. It is her life. But the twist here is that it is under the guise, the whole aesthetics of it is that it is an unauthorized Batman parody. So they don't do like, oh, that's Bat Guy and the Jokester. No, it's literally Batman, Joker, Daily Planet, Superman. She just straight up uses that without any kind of conniption whatsoever in terms of like permission from DC, which makes this a very punk movie. This is an indie darling and a punk film to be sure, and of course an LGBTQ powerhouse in terms of again, a very supportive audience at the Music Box Theater this past Saturday and this past weekend. When we were watching this film, I was with my friend. When we were watching this film, there was hooping and hollering, extremely supportive and cheering. And in the Q&A, someone asked, "So how do you feel now that you've made the gay Citizen Kane?" And I got a big laugh from everybody. No, this film, yeah, on a technical level, in comparison to what's in the mainstream, it doesn't look that great. It is very clearly the whole thing is filmed in front of a blue screen to the point where they're recreating that one Todd Phillips Joker scene where the mother is in the hospital, and it's like they couldn't even get like a hospital bed for the mother. It was like she's just like on a backdrop, and like the hospital bed is composited in. But at that level, it's kind of in and of itself part of the joke. So that honestly, once you get in, again, the trailer looks bad if you don't know the context of this movie.
Yeah,
it is hyper indie.
If you read some of the comments from people who don't know anything about the director, then also the actress and the main lead, they're just like, "What the hell is this?" And they're trashing it for all. And to be fair, reasons.
I was also the same way too, but I had heard this film through the Twitter sphere, and I was like, hold on, this is a trans coming of age story under the guise of like an unauthorized Joker parody. That is really awesome. And no, there are a myriad. This is a technical, like almost marvel in and of itself. Just the fact that she was doing it by herself, at least for the most part. I think she did license out some animation, but yeah, there's like 2D animation, there's 3D animation. Oh, dude. Oh, that's what I was.
2D what's stuff that? Is really cool looking, actually.
It's pretty cool looking.
Yeah.
What's that one? It's like a fever dream. It's the Adult Swim, 3D animated thing. It's like a machinima. The character is black, but it's like a fantasy character.
No clue.
You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Once you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But regardless, they use some of that information. It's very, very shitty 3D animation, and it's funny. It's really, really funny because this is dripped in satire, of course, but also sarcasm. At times,
Are Not to interrupt you. Are you thinking Xavier Renegade
Yes, I am
Angel?
thinking of Xavier Ray, and it's like it's got some of that vibe to it. This honestly looks like this could have been picked straight out of Adult Swim at like 1 o'clock in the morning, which is a compliment because that's right up Vera Drew's alley
Working with Tim.
as a comedian.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, overall but here's the thing. Amidst all this sarcasm and joking and like poking fun, there's a lot of references to Batman lore, regular lore, but then also like the meta lore of like, hey, this scene is like poking fun at Jared Leto's take on the Joker, right? And everyone got a good kick out of that. Amidst all of that, the mumblecore almost of it all, it's an extremely earnest and very like true to life coming of age story as a trans person for Vera Drew, and so like it shows flashback to her to her youth as a kid, like growing up in Smallville, watching the Joker on the Jokers on screen and all that stuff. And again, it's all like a very, very thinly veiled allegory and parallel to her life. But in that sense, you can do some really, really cool things with once you get to that level of wacky, you can do some cool things. So for instance, when they're dead naming, so Vera Drew was not the name that she was assigned at birth. It is actually another name, but they just bleep it. It's like a censor bleep, as if this thing was showing at 10 p.m. I was like, that's a really cool trick because it's like that's their dead name. And they use it to full effect because when they do use their full name without the bleep, it means something. So it's like, okay, we're not just doing this for jokes. You actually use that as a thematic device because this is like a very heightened scene. This is a turning point in these two characters' relationship. And then when they drop the dead name without the censor, holy shit, that was a really cool way to use that mechanic. And it's like, okay, this is filmmaking, genuine filmmaking, smart filmmaking on an indie shoestring budget. So on stuff like that, and yeah, the punkness of it all, like they straight up say like the main villain in this story is Lorne Michaels from Saturday Night Live, like just straight up Lorne Michaels. It's like, yeah, that's Lorne Michaels, and to that end, like the character Lorne Michaels shows up for a good while. They cut to him multiple times, and yeah, Lorne Michaels was originally voiced by Sarah Sherman, who's currently on Saturday Night Live, or maybe at least was. I don't know, but anyway, but because of the nature of the parody, she was like, "Oh, can you actually recast me right before the Toronto Film Festival?" Which she said in the Q&A is like, "That's unfortunate, but I understand that move, so whatever." But then they got Maria Bamford to voice Lorne Michaels after that. So yeah, you also get some really cool cameos. So of course, Tim Heidecker, Bob Odenkirk, in a very, very small role.
Oh wow.
But Bob Odenkirk nonetheless. Robert Wool, and a lot of like comedy, like of that type of comedy, cameos and stuff. Tim Heidecker plays Perry White. But in this iteration, Perry White is like a belligerent Alex Jones like hater who's like doing an Alex Jones impression, and it's really funny. But yeah, overall, this was a really great movie. Honestly, this is like one of the few films that I'm willing to pay for like a physical copy.
Oh wow. Okay.
Just because it's like supporting this artist, and yeah, the crowd absolutely loved it. The only big critique is my friend Nick. He was saying it's like, yeah, I really, really enjoyed the story and how honest and true to this filmmaker it was. However, I just didn't like any of the Batman jokes. It's like
So
the Batmanness of it, and I know, right? He acknowledges that, like,
yeah.
But here's the thing: I probably wouldn't have ever watched this to begin with without it, right?
Yeah.
Without that Batman front story. But it's like, if there was a more conventional take to this story, I probably would have loved it just the same.
Yeah.
And that's what I countered with. It's like, yeah, it gives it that punk angle because of all the controversy and the rights issues, and it becomes that's
like
the reason why
at
we're
that
watching.
point.
Oh, exactly. So but let me say this: Vera Drew did not just choose the Batman thing for the controversy in and of itself. She stated in interviews and at the Q&A that's like, yeah, I found out I was trans when I was watching Joel Schumacher's Batman, and most young young guys, they wanted to kiss Nicole Kidman. I wanted to be Nicole Kidman watching that movie. And it's like, you know what? That's fucking awesome. This is very honest filmmaking that you really don't get to see, particularly in the superhero genre. Particularly in the superhero genre. And in that sense, it's absolutely awesome. 3.5 stars, easy for me. I like Steve was saying, I cannot in the green room. I cannot wait to see what she does next because
Nice.
it was a great time. Yeah,
That's cool that you went out there and did that, because you know what, man, I'll say this. I know so many people, and I don't know this. I know so many people, and there's people online like this as well, who say you should go and support this movie and blah blah blah, and they get a movie like Challengers, they get a movie like Annabelle, not Annabelle, Abigail, like all the
yeah,
movies,
yeah.
all the movies we've been reviewing these past few weeks that aren't these big budget films, and they don't go to the theaters and see it. And instead they'll go and see the next blockbuster, or they'll go rewatch all the Spider-Man films every Monday like they're happening right now in theaters, instead of going to see the new film in theaters for like a discount day or something. You actually went out there, and not only did you go see a smaller film, you saw possibly the smallest film we'll ever review here on Sleepless with Steve in a while.
Quite possibly. Yeah, short of that thing maybe Steve's doing in and around Iowa, but I won't talk much about that.
Yeah.
But other than that, this felt indie.
Yeah.
Let me say that. This felt very indie because I know we joke about like we do earnestly talk about indie, but it's still showing in like 200 theaters across America.
Yeah.
It's not wide release, but it's still something.
This is like
Meanwhile, this is going on the road. It's like one weekend per city.
Yeah.
And it's been struggling to come out amidst controversy and just financing. So it's like it's really good to be able to do that.
I'm kind of shocked that there were more showings in Iowa than Illinois.
I was shocked by that too. Yeah.
I was shocked by that. There were showings in Davenport, Iowa City, and there was one other one. I'm trying to remember. Des Moines.
And here's the thing. Those showings are really great to come out to because, as she was saying, where it's like, yeah, whenever I show this, because it's so rare, or like the showings are very limited, it's like every trans person in the state comes out. I imagine for smaller states, yeah, every trans person comes out to hear. And then like like I was saying, it felt like the whole queer Chicago community was in that theater, packed in that theater. And I'm sure it was, 3 nights or three times a day, this past weekend. It was really cool.
No, dude, and the music
I purposely
box. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say I purposely did very little research on it too after you brought it up because I wanted to hear what you had to say about it. It's definitely on my radar now. I'm kind of shocked it wasn't before. I'll definitely check it out. I'll definitely check it out once it gets a video on demand release. I got no problem renting it. You know,
for sure.
Or on Vudu or something like that. I would like to see it, but I think that screening from the way you described it too had to be something pretty special.
And it was an extremely supportive audience. So I was probably very biased with my enjoyment of it. So maybe if I watched it by myself, but I know for sure it would not go below, like 2.5 at the very worst, just because again, the story is so, it's very, again, honest filmmaking. And there were like legitimately some really funny jokes in there that made me laugh that I can't even spoil too much. Batman is a prick. And it's like, yeah, it is kind of weird that in the Batman mythos, he keeps like kidnapping these boys to be his sidekick. That's really, really weird and not okay, kind of like teaching little boys to like beat up people on the street with him. It's like, what if we played with that idea?
Reminds me of the Lego Batman joke where it's just like, why are we paying a man who dresses as a bat to beat up people who have mental illness?
Yeah, exactly. 1,000%.
But yeah, no, the Music Box Theater is, a great Chicago landmark in my opinion that caters to films like that and will showcase a film that isn't getting like a wide distribution. I saw What We Do in the Shadows, not the show, but the original movie, before it even got its like wide distribution that year, like 9 months later. Like I saw it in January of the year it came out, and then it got its wide distribution. It got like, a studio to work with it in like August, September-ish. It was like insane to like see the movie that early before anybody else and like talk about it and be like, no, this like needs to get like distributed.
Really good stuff. Really good review, Dom. Great way to start the show. We will move forward, talk about Challengers, the big review today that all three of us saw and that all three of us are going to talk about here. I will say, I thought of a great intro for this. I think I said it at the end of the last show. I thought of a great introductory sentence for my review of Challengers on StevePulaski.com. I thought of it like a week in advance, and I want to read it right now. Just like any casual or professional tennis match, Challenger starts with love. Thought of a very good line. I'm going to abuse that. And it's pretty true, though. This is a very interesting, compelling drama, romance drama in a way, from the guy who just brought us one of the best movies of last year, 2 years ago, excuse me, in Bones and All. This could have also been called Balls and All. I'm on a roll today.
Meanwhile, I'm
Luca,
sitting there like, man, not a single exploding spacecraft here on this Challengers movie. What a shame. What a damn shame.
Luca Guadagnino's new movie, though, has a lot in common with the erotic thriller genre of the 90s. It's got a lot of the same beats. It's a movie that revolves around tennis, the world of tennis, but it's not about tennis. I think those are two very different things. It's not really a sports movie in any way, shape, or form, mainly because the matches have this perfunctoriness to them. And they, that they're coming, or they're always going to come inevitably, but it's really the trifecta drama that we're here for, and that's the star of the show. Basically, the movie revolves around two lifelong friends and two professional tennis players, and Patrick Zweig and Art Donaldson. They're played by Josh O'Connor and Mike Feist, respectively. And essentially, what they it's a story that takes place from 2007 to 2019, and it's a non-linear narrative. I'll get into that later. But essentially, their lives really change when they meet Tashi Duncan, who's played by Zendaya. And she is just this phenom in women's tennis. And they both become romantically involved with her to a certain degree. At first, she chooses Patrick, but then when you see in the opening scenes, and then when the movie cuts to the present, she's married to Art. And she basically has, after a career-ending injury, she becomes Art's coach, and she's living essentially her career vicariously through Art. Meanwhile, Patrick is like this journeyman tennis player who's like in his mid to late 30s, who's like clinging to, the competition aspect of the sport. He's almost penniless to begin with, can't even afford a hotel. Which, side note, one of the people that absolutely killed their cameo in this movie was the woman who plays the motel manager in the very beginning. I don't know if you guys felt the same way or have thought about her since. She absolutely crushes that scene when her introduction, when Patrick's trying to rent a motel room, and she's seen shaking the soda machine and like completely blows him off when he tries to bribe his way into a room. Felt like she was worth mentioning. Should probably have looked up her name, but she crushed her cameo. But be that as it may, though, this is a very solid movie. Just obviously speaking broadly, I want to hear what you guys have to say. This is a very solid movie, not without its flaws. I will say, not without its flaws. Given the trailers and sort of the production and the talent behind this movie, I'm not gonna lie, I did leave the theater wanting a bit more, and I'll explain more in a bit here. I have one major criticism with this thing that I already lightly touched on, but and I think that it threatens to alienate a lot of people. And I wonder if you guys felt the same way, but I kind of just want to hear generally what you guys have to say about it after my brief start. So, Joe, I'll start with you. General thoughts on Challengers.
Look, I didn't dress up this way because I felt good about what I did in school and everything, and I was like, I'm so excited for tonight. No, I dressed this way because I loved this movie, and this actually like shot up for me as my favorite movie this year. And I know like that probably already just reveals my star rating at the end of the show, but I just want to open with that. I genuinely had a blast watching this movie, man. I was on the edge of my seat throughout. I was just locked in every time these three characters, Art, Patrick, and Tashi, were on screen. Like, if it was just one of them, if it was two of them, it was all three of them. The drama there between them all, and like how they link to one another, it had me locked in from beginning to end. And I'm curious to see, because I believe you're hinting at the non-linear story route that this movie takes. For me, that just added to the drama even more, because every time like we start out the movie and we're starting out at where the movie's going to end and everything. And just cutting back like 2 weeks earlier and then years earlier, and just slowly piecing together, like, you know, how these people met, and also, like, you know, the bond they have with one another. And then going back to the present day match, it's like, okay, I'm rooting for this person now. And then you cut back to another flashback, and, like, you know, all these other things that happened 11 years ago or 13 years ago, whatever it may be. And then you cut back to the present day, you're like, okay, now I'm rooting for this this person. And dude, it had me going back and forth on who I'm rooting for, the context of things, like, playing now in, I guess, quote, the present timeline of the film. It just had me like, holy shit, like, every time I come back to this tennis match that is basically the climax of the movie, I am just with new context. I have a whole new view of how this match is going, these characters and everything. And it just kept me interested from beginning to end by just having that kind of narrative, and just edited that way as well. And they, like, of course, the performances here by all three of them: Josh O'Connor, Zendaya, and oh my god, forgive me,
Mike Faced.
Mike Faced, thank you. All three of them are fantastic, man. I loved watching all three. Whether it be Mike and Josh, like, you know, having their camaraderie with one another as friends to eventually enemies, or Zendaya just, you know, wanting to be a power couple with either one of them. And it's like, one of them is like, you know, he's just trying to, you know, become his own tennis legend, not be hers tennis legend. And the other one just actually genuinely loves her, and she just doesn't feel the same way. And there's just so many more complications to their relationships between all three of them, or from each of the guys to Tashi. It had me, like I said, on the edge of my seat, like, locked in from beginning to end. This is probably going to be, like, honestly, my number one favorite movie this year. I loved Bones and All, and I very much enjoyed, what was his other film? Suspiria as well. But this actually might be my favorite Luca Guadagnino movie now.
Really solid synopsis. I will say real quick before I pass it over to you, Dom, and then you could take us into break with your thoughts. I will say one of the elements of this movie I think is its strongest, and it's one that you might not recognize while you're watching it. But I guess, I mean, not everybody writes a fucking 10-paragraph review like I do after a movie, but I don't know, maybe on the drive home or maybe during the movie, I don't know. But this was a movie that, like, the more I thought about when I was writing it, it feels like you're actively watching somebody's dreams, like, disintegrate.
Yeah.
And in multiple respects, all three of these characters lose something major. Tashi loses her career. Patrick loses, like, his money and, like, his young life chasing something that he's never going to really truly succeed at. And then you have Art, who loses his passion. And all these characters lose something, like, unquantifiable, that their lives would be holistically different if they had retained it, either by luck, either by talent, or just by skill. And I think that's an element conveyed in this movie that's one of its strongest points too, because it adds a really sad undercurrent throughout this whole movie.
I swear to God, I'll be real quick and I'll pass it off to Don. But, like, that type of, like, what you just described there, moments of this movie reminded me at points of, like, similar beats to Whiplash, and just, like, how that whole thing went. And it gave me so many memories of watching that movie, or just a similar beats that, like, possibly also why I fell in love with this movie as well, because Whiplash was one of my favorite movies that year as well. Anyways, Dom, go.
I'm just here for the ass, and it was delivering in all spades. No, like Joe and like the Space Shuttle Challenger, I had a blast as well, because this is really, really tight filmmaking. Like, no joke, it is that's not a pun even either. Like, straight up, this is so focused. Like, at no point is the story like, hey, we have to win the $500,000 tennis tournament to save the gym. No, this is just three people and how their lives interact, and the depths in which you can go. And when it's so tight like that needs superb writing to make it work, unless you're making like a short film. But dude, I was on like straight up the edge of my seat, like, waiting to know what happens to these characters, what happens here. The twists here are so damn good. there are a lot of twists in the plot, in character motivation, and how things parallel with each other. Really good use of flashbacks and the pacing. Uh, Joe, I loved it. I think I love it as much as you did because this was, yeah, man. I was so ready to like roll my eyes. I'm like, this felt like, what was that one movie starring Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt? Uh,
The
in
spaceship
space,
one?
in yeah, spaceship one. The
Passengers.
whole
Passengers.
the marketing for the marketing for passengers challengers. No, the marketing for passengers was just those two attractive people making out. That's all it was, right? And we got like an okay movie out of that, right? This movie was three super attractive people making out, and I was very worried that like, okay, is it gonna be like ham-fisted, and is it gonna be like melodramatic in how it approaches, this three relationships? No, 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 it's none of that. This is three very triple A people, type triple A people, like really gunning for something once they find it. Once they find it. And when they do, holy shit, they go hard. And it's a really, really good time. And even the slower aspects, there's a lot of tension, the quote unquote sexy scenes, they don't waste that. They it's not like the 90s where they're just throwing it into these random scenes just to, oh, these two characters like each other. No, there are some really, really interesting, like subtle things that you can notice where it predicts how there's like, it's like, there's times where this movie's like, yeah, man, bros before a hose. Other times it's like, fuck that guy. F that guy. He's so, what a scumbag. Other times it's like, I don't know. Everyone here kind of sucks. And the way the movie handles that, on a technical aspect, real quick, it's like, bro, I think we have innovated. I think we have discovered every single way you can show a tennis ball being hit in this movie.
Or even
Holy
shoot
shit,
a court, like a tennis court, scene.
And it's not even a sports movie either.
it's not really a sport in the same way that Whiplash is not a movie. The same way Whiplash is a sports movie. It's not a jazz movie.
Yeah.
That movie is not really about music.
That
It's
movie
about
takes the structure and cliches of a sport, not cliches, but structure and
the
conventionality.
beats, yeah,
of a sports movie,
100%. And I love that movie. It has nothing to do with, well, it has barely anything to do with jazz at all. It's all aesthetics, and I love that movie. This is like, no, dude, this is like I don't really know what to compare it to because I haven't really seen much of that genre, but like a very, high intensity, like romance, sexual thriller, not thriller, but you know what I mean? It's in that vein.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it there. I'm going to come back by talking about the soundtrack because holy shit,
Yes.
it punches you in the face. The music here. So we're going to talk about Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross real soon after the break, but I'll punt to Steve, man.
I'm excited to talk about that because reading a couple different reviews after I published my review of Challengers, a lot of people criticizing the score here, and I don't agree with that.
I can see why, but I
can see
disagree.
why too, but I don't agree with it. I do not. I like a pulpy score, and this one delivers. And we'll talk about that. I'll let Dom, you do the lead in when we come back in from intermission. I'll give you the first word. We are talking Challengers, new movie by Luca Guadagnino. We will return here in just a couple of minutes after a Zoom-sponsored intermission. Keep it right here. It's Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube on this Wednesday night.
live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve. After our Zoom-sponsored intermission, we are talking the movie Challengers, the brand new Luca Guadagnino movie here on this Wednesday evening. Left off with Dom. Dom was in the middle of his kind of overall thoughts on the movie, too. You brought up the score, the Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross score of the movie, which has been sort of a dividing point amongst critics and audiences. What are your thoughts on the very pulpy score that we have here?
Yeah, we don't really talk about scores as much as we should here on the show, and I'm glad to talk about it right now, is that this Challengers score punches you in the face like with neon brass knuckles, with how, and which is like weird because like this isn't an 80s film. The farthest back this movie goes is like 2006 or whatever, and that's not the point, which is good, because if it was a movie about the 80s, I probably would have rolled my eyes. No, the whole point is that it is high pressure, high intensity, and that driving that comes in, and it's a motif, is so damn good, because it's like it's replicating not 100%, but it's like alluding to a heart pounding, or that excitement you get when like you're in the middle of something really good here with like a tennis match or something. And there's a lot of ways to interpret that. For the most part, it is driving. For a movie about the complicated love life of three people, you kind of needed something extra to help drive that home. Obviously, the acting here is working fabulously, and the directing and the writing, but the music definitely puts it over the edge as something really, really high intense. I keep using those words, but it's true. High intensity, and just absolutely not balls to the wall in a wild way, but it's so highly pressurized, right? It's like someone who's really working towards this specific goal in the sport of whatever, but particularly tennis, and all the pressure. It's like, think of an Olympian, dude. Like, they spend 4 years of their life training for like a minute or two of activity in a foreign country, and that's like their whole life to maybe get a bronze. And that's incredible. So in that sense, for athletes, it's so driving, and it's so damn cool that I would imagine for other people it might get annoying after a while, because there maybe was a couple only like a couple moments where it's like, I almost laughed at like when the motif came back where it's like, hey, it's like cut to like reverse shot to this person when they see someone. It's like "Dugga, dugga, 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 dugga." I was like, okay, that was a little funny. I can see where that maybe didn't get the point across in the way that the director intended. But for the most part, I really, really enjoyed what Reznor and Ross were doing here. And like some of the other stuff they did, almost random shit that they're doing, not random, but like Mank, Pixar's Soul. What? How did the guys from Nine Inch Nails do Pixar's Jazz movie and it was really good? How the hell did that happen? And other Watchmen, the Watchmen HBO show,
Yeah, and
which I
Bones and All
love.
as well. They did Bones and All with.
Yeah, it's like, bro, why are you becoming one of my favorite film composers that I'm not even like acknowledging all that much? What?
They were one of my favorites. It was around the time I started getting into film. When I saw The Social Network, that was the movie that made me actually start looking more at film scores and like
They did The Social Network.
Yeah.
Son of a David Fincher. What the?
Yeah, they did more with Fincher as well. I forgot what other stuff. I think maybe Gone Girl. I could be wrong about that though. But
that's all over. That shows they truly have skill because that's like they're not typecast into like rock or whatever. No, they know their shit.
They do, yeah. Dom, everything you said. I mean, like anytime we've talked about any movie and it's got Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross making the score, I've gushed over them every time. I bring them up as much as possible when we review something that they're working on. And I felt the same way about like the score here as apparently as you guys did, where it was very enjoyable. So much so that I hope when award season comes around that is a category that this film is definitely tossed into. And I hope it's not forgotten at the end of the year because I definitely do think it deserves the nomination score at least. Everything else though, like I can see people debating it and everything. Of course, for me, with me saying that this is one of my favorite movies of the year, I want to get as many nominations as possible. But one that I think it deserves the nomination for and has a damn good chance at winning, even this early on in the year, is definitely score.
Mm-hmm.
No,
sure.
I like the score of this a lot. And the thing is, not every movie can pull off a score like this, where you have the music intruding on the scene almost to, I say intruding, because of the way that it almost matches the level of volume for the dialogue. And you see that a lot in you see that a lot in erotic thrillers. It mainly made me think of Adrian Lin movies like 9.5 Weeks or Sliver, or some of these like 90s erotic.
He knows what
thrillers.
He's talking about. I'm glad we keep him around, Joe.
That's why we named the show after him, Dom.
They have these sort of, characteristics though, where the score, people can critique it in different ways and such, but it matches sort of the level, this like sleek, glossy, look of the movie too, the cinematography as well. And it also matches, like I said, the pulpy nature of this movie. It feels like a beach read in a way. You know what it kind of reminded me of too in tone? It's not as dark as this movie. I mean, the movie I'm going to compare it to, which is also getting a fucking sequel, which I'm really not too thrilled about, but it matches this movie in level of like pulpiness and sort of like a cunning narrative in a way too. It's the movie I'm talking about. It's A Simple Favor, and it has some of the same.
That, and it did remind me of that. You're right.
The Anna Kendrick movie. It reminds me a lot of that movie. Now, that movie takes some darker turns and some more violent, murderous turns than this one does. But where this one really succeeds in my eyes too is really showing like the multidimensionality of different characters. And Dom touched on this earlier too, how these people can be viewed as likable in one scene and then another point in time, either in the past or present, comes out and you don't like them. You don't like them, or you really start to question their motivations. That's a testament to really good writing here. On that note, though, and I want to bring this up too. I know we're going to run long tonight, but I do want to bring this up, though. The only thing that I think really threatens to derail this movie is its structure. I think the move to make this movie as big of a fucking jigsaw puzzle as it is, I don't think was very necessary. At first, I thought that Justin Kritzky's script, was going to juggle both the beginning and the near end of the story and then it was going to happen that then beginning almost like two parallel trains that converge. I was almost thinking that was going to happen, but that doesn't happen. This movie stays jumbled in so many ways until the very end. And the hard part with that, I think there's two problems that come to that rise to the surface because of this. I think the relationship between Tashi and Art isn't as developed as it could be, especially when you see like sort of the business operation of their marriage, but and how it's devolved in so many ways to less romance and more of a player coach relationship. I think the graduation or the degradation to that is missed because of the way this narrative was structured. And I also think too that the frequent cutting interrupts some of the inherent romance and suspense elements of this movie too. That I think if I don't see why this movie I think this movie would have even been more successful if it was linear. I don't think it would have been a problem to tell this story from 2007 to 2019. I don't even have a problem with the length of the movie either, a little over 2 hours. I don't think it's over long. I think the problem lies in the structure, and I think the structure does more harm to this movie than it does in aiding it.
Okay. I didn't feel that way. I felt that it. Man, I hate to keep bringing up movies that it reminded me of and everything. And I already mentioned this one when we were talking about score, but The Social Network is another movie that's told in a non-linear fashion.
Right.
And it's told in a very similar way, where rather than a tennis match, we're in a court proceeding, and we're cutting back, and you're seeing. You're cutting between two different court proceedings. One with Andrew Garfield's character, and one with Armie Hammer's twin brother characters that he plays as. And it's similar to that, where it's told in a non-linear fashion. You're constantly cutting between two different like time periods, or just like many points in a timeline and everything. I felt that this movie also like it did it just as good as The Social Network. I do see what you're saying as to it definitely doesn't develop Art and Tashi's love relationship, but I also do think that it didn't really mean to, because Tashi really, I don't think, loves Art. I think she, like you were saying, she is living her tennis career that she didn't get to have through him, and she is trying to get him into like that level, that league that she knew she could achieve, and she wants it in him, and like she feels like. And I think again, it goes into like some of the twists and turns that this movie takes. The fact that she, pretty much did fall in love with Patrick, and where that led to, and eventually where it led to with her career. I think that just scares her, that like giving Art this satisfaction of love or this lust that like he wants in a marriage might jeopardize his career, or might throw him off his game and everything. I mean, like that's like the whole thing of why she wants to send him to a challenger tournament, as well as to get him back on his game. That's the way I was taking it, like in terms of like that whole relationship. But I totally get what you mean. That is something I do think maybe the movie could have developed a little bit more from Art's point of view, and really get from him. I do think that what's his name, Matt Feist. Feist. I think he sells a lot of his like how much he's hurting over the fact that he didn't end up with Tashi, or like even though he's with Tashi, it's not really love, through his facial expressions, man. This guy's got some really good like sad puppy eye like I know, like please don't leave me, please, like all these kind of looks. He sells that through his facial expressions. But I totally understand your criticism, and I could totally see anybody. And I've talked to two other people today. I was just telling Dom in the green room, I posted my Letterboxd rating, which I normally don't do because I don't want you guys seeing it, but I love this movie so much I just didn't give a damn. I posted on my Instagram. I've had way more people that I didn't think this movie would appeal to, and maybe it's because like the trailer was sexy and cool, and it had Zendaya, which attracts a lot of people that are young. They went to the theater and they saw it opening weekend, and we were talking about it. And I've heard plenty of people say where you're saying, Steve, and I've talked to plenty of people who feel the same way. It's probably the most divisive thing I've seen about this movie is how the narrative is done in this movie.
What say you, Dom?
I think I enjoy the jumping around, just because the thing that gets me with jumping around, it can be a momentum thing, but for me, it's the thing I fear the most is a confusion thing, right? And for me, I didn't find that as much, because all I had to do was look at Mike Feist's hair, and I was like, okay, we're good. It's like I know exactly which timeline we're in, or like which period that we're in. So for me, it didn't really affect me that much. I understand. It could be, and actually, honestly, the establishment of that, because it's a small cast movie. It's very tight. It's just three people that you really need to know,
which
and
helps.
yeah, it does. It absolutely does. So when there's a quick jump to this time period, where it's like, okay, why are we doing this? It's for this very specific reason, and for me, that worked a lot because this is a nugget of information that you needed to know. And we were here for like 5 minutes and now we're back. We're back to the present. Um, and I'm glad they ditched the like 12 years ago. That was confusing. I'll say that, like 12 years ago, 8 years ago, now 13 years ago, because it's like its time is
The day
advancing.
before.
Those Exactly. The day before, it's like, okay. But there was enough visual information. It's like, oh, here's the giant billboard on the side of the building. Okay, now we know we're at this time. There was enough visual. There's a lot of good technical, or not technical, like visual storytelling.
Yeah.
Like between this is like
Just even,
Zendaya.
just even costume and hair, it tells a story for
Yeah.
some of these characters, especially Patrick.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like Mike Feist has like, oh yeah, he's rich. So he has all the latest, sports things to keep him going. He's got the tape along his back. He's got the,
Dude, yeah.
the supplements that he can drink, the shakes made by other people, coaches, etc.,
A lot
therapists.
of sports movies don't ever showcase that kind of stuff, the like athletic tape or even like the back tape that he uses and stuff like that, for especially the age these characters are. And for a movie that wasn't really focusing on tennis, they knocked all that shit out of the park.
Tennis is also it's a gladiator sport,
It is.
honestly. I adore it I'm not really that interested in it, but I respect it so much as a sport.
It was
Uh,
one of the few sports I was kind of good at in gym class in high school.
oh, look at that.
It was
Tennis.
one of the only sports, doubles or singles we used to play. We had a tennis court at my high school,
That's
and I
yeah.
enjoyed it. And it was one of the I remember the tennis unit was like 4 weeks long, and I loved it because we got to
Yeah.
go outside. It was the spring, and I would that was the one I actually really tried in, and I was pretty decent at it.
Tennis is fun as
Yeah.
hell, dude. It really is.
I would pop and tear a fucking Achilles if I tried it again today.
Yeah.
But like, but but I'm not gonna lie. I see pickleball. Like I see like a couple of coworkers play pickleball, and it's one of I think the fastest rising sport in the country. And it's like, yeah, it's part of me. I kind of can't wait to get
That
old.
was my gym class sport, was that. And it got me. I used to play tennis like for fun when I was really young, and then like my high school didn't have tennis courts, but they set up pickleball courts in the gym all the time. That's what we played.
Hell yeah.
I guess we'll
We're gonna
parlay into closing
yeah.
thoughts here. Uh, and And I will say there's a good growing trend with Luca Guadagnino Nino that you see here. Tennis is really not an inherently sexy sport, but also cannibalism isn't romantic either. And Guadagnino did really work wonders with Bones and All, which we've said like this movie has divisive elements to it. Bones and All remains one of the most divisive movies that I talk about with people or even bring up. Like my best friend hates that fucking movie with a burning passion, hates that movie, almost walked out of it. And I'm like, I knew about 45 minutes in I was watching the best movie of like one of the best movies of the year, top to bottom. And I think that's Guadagnino's lane. I mean, I think he'll always, we didn't bring this one up though. I'm due for a rewatch on it too, but I think he's always going to be remembered for Call Me By Your Name first and foremost. That movie being like kind of one of the strongest contemporary like queer film classics that there is. I think that will always be the movie that is associated with him. But Challengers earns its place here too. There's a lot to like about this movie. It's just an engrossing story, and even with flaws and all, wink, I do think that there's a lot here that makes this movie truly special, one to watch. It looks great on the big screen. It's really an aesthetically pleasing movie, top to bottom. I had a lot of fun with it too. And I don't want to damn out what I say is a good movie for not being great. So 3 out of 4 stars for me. I feel like I'll be on the low end here. We'll go Dom and then Joe to finish us off.
If I had a nickel for every tennis movie that scored really well on this show and dealt with the sexualities of the characters, I would have two, but it's weird that it happened twice. Battle of the Sexes was one of my favorite movies of that year when it came out with Emma Stone and Steve Carell. And the way that like That was a historical movie. This is fictional, but that movie, that was like a heartwarming movie, and it made me feel really, really good. Uh, Challengers puts me on edge. It made me sweat. It was like, holy hell, what is happening here? And that filled me with horniness. No, I'm kidding. That filled me with like tension, and it made me. It honestly gave me something that I have not quite felt this year. Uh, so oh, man, I've been waffling back and forth all friggin' night. I think I'm gonna give this a 3.5 out of 4 stars, a very high 3.5 out of 4 stars, for me, definitely, because I had a really good time. Honestly, if I watch it again, I might go higher, but we'll see.
Nice. Luca Guadagnino had me leaning in towards the screen over someone getting ready to serve a tennis ball. Not even hitting it, just literally getting ready to serve it, and where he was placing it on a racket for a specific. About to pull this in the final 20 minutes. That whole last 20 minutes too, I didn't talk about it on the show. I talked about it in the green room with Dom, but it is fantastic. It is like one of the best climaxes I've seen in a movie, and like it literally was like, this is amazing. This is what I wish Marvel, DC, any superhero action movie could pull off a climax this damn intense, this like in with this much endurance and just keeping me focused and attention like in for as long as this movie did. Throw in the soundtrack from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and I'm gonna be seated for this movie again and again and again. I hope it's in talks for when Oscar season comes, but it will definitely be in the talks for me when we get to the best of, worst of this year. And I should just said the best of, honestly. With that, I don't know why I mentioned the worst of, but it'll be in the talks when we do our best of list for me at least. This is 4 out of 4 stars for me.
Yeah, man.
First 4-star film of the year for you?
No, it was Dune 2. So Zendaya,
Dune 2, you did.
Zendaya's got, she's got 2. So I guess if there was a year where I reviewed 2 Zendaya films that got 4 stars, I will also have 2 nickels.
That's funny. I still have not given a movie 4 stars this year. I came very close on a movie that we are going to talk about later this month.
Oh, okay.
I came very close, but there's a decent flaw that prevented me. I was pretty hooked on 4 stars.
I mean,
for it.
Last year too, I don't think I gave a movie 4 stars as well until I saw it. We didn't even review it until later on, even after the year was done. Oh wait, no, I gave Holdovers. No, never mind. Yeah, wait, I gave Holdovers and Oppenheimer 4 stars. I was gonna say Poor Things was the one, but I mean, look how late those movies took until I gave something 4 stars that year.
I think I only gave 3 movies 4 stars last year. I gave it to The Holdovers. I gave it to I Like Movies, which you still can't fucking watch. And I haven't forgotten about that movie. We are going to review it as soon as they get it on something. And also Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Those were the only movies that I gave 4 stars last year. Usually, I think my average, I think I did one year, my average was like 4.5 movies a year. So that was a little bit lower. I'm going to let you, Joe, introduce this next topic here. We won't go super long on it since we're already in overtime over here, but I do want to get to this because this was kind of a bombshell. And I haven't really, granted, I haven't done much digging as to how the public has reacted to this information because it's a long read. It's like an athletic sized read over here. And it is revolves around Dwayne Johnson, who's had like a squeaky clean PR campaign his entire life. And I have a theory as to why he's like this. I have a theory. At least, providing the reports, because there are retorts from different individuals saying that this stuff did not happen or is being misinterpreted. Yeah. But I kind of have a theory as to why this is. Two kind of intertwined theories that I'll save for after your introduction. But this piece, though, read one down how Dwayne Johnson's tardiness led to a $250 million runaway production. It's an exclusive to The Wrap, written by Humberto Gonzalez. Take it away, Joe.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you've been keeping up with The Rock's career, the man exploded into Hollywood as, the hardworking, muscle-bound action comedy movie star with Kevin Hart all the time, and was a big box office draw from if I wanted to pinpoint a period, probably 2013 till about 2018 It was like The Rock made blockbusters and people went to go see them and they made a ton of money. I will never even forget 2018 when no 2017 when Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle came out, and this guy told me how that movie was a better blockbuster than Star Wars was, and I was like, I'm just gonna bite my lip and just sit there and just act like you just didn't say that to me, because go back to Steve and I's review of it on Sleepless with Steve, and Steve dog pounded that movie. I thought it was okay, but Steve hated that movie.
That's an opinion.
That's certainly a take.
But yeah, I mean, Dwayne was this big family household name at that time. He really became something big. And then, as of recent, stuff has been dropping, especially with the Black Adam production. While this is more focused on the Red One production, if you kept up with some of the Black Adam drama, you would know like how much he was pushing for his tequila brand to be on the red carpet premiere of this movie that was catered to kids and all this stuff. How much he was really trying to center himself around a new DC universe that nothing was really confirmed for him to be, and just really dependent on the box office of that movie, and how much like false promises he gave to certain stars in that movie and all this stuff. But with Red One, a lot of stuff has been coming out from former cast members, from Ryan Reynolds to even people are starting to speculate Rebecca Ferguson, and many more. Dwayne Johnson has caused like a ton of issues on set. One of them being tardiness, which is leading to a $250 million runaway production in the Amazon MGM film Red One, which is a Christmas action movie about like something about him helping Santa Claus catch like the naughtiest person, like he's a bounty hunter or something, and Chris Evans is the naughtiest person or something. I don't know. They haven't like released too much about that, but so much drama behind the scenes of him being late to sets because he has to work out 3 hours a day, and he's only allowed 6 hours of work. So that's 6 hours of shooting with him a day. And if you've ever been on a set, you know 6 hours isn't a fucking ton of time, honestly. To where he's peeing in water bottles, which is something that apparently isn't actually true, but some people are saying is true, and you can actually see in the background of some of his Instagram videos while he's in the gym, where he's peeing in water bottles to save time, upsetting crew members by doing so and handing it to the PA to dispose of. He got into a fight with Ryan Reynolds on the set of Red Notice because of how late he was often on set. And of course, yeah, all the brand deals he's constantly pushing eventually leads him to just taking phone calls while shooting on set and delaying even longer productions on films, and already just taking that 6 hours they have Dwayne Johnson for and minimizing it even more, because it's like, hang on guys, he's got to do a 4-hour phone call with fucking the XFL right now because he's decided to be the ambassador of that as well. There's so many more things you can look up into the WWE aspect that he's been recently doing and how he was late for that and all the drama behind there. Even though people said they had fun with him coming back, the behind-the-scenes stuff of the cast and crew that had to deal with this stuff for the WWE, even movies, it hasn't been well received. And again, this goes back even to like some of the Fast and Furious movies as well, with some of the co-stars of those movies like Tyrese Gibson and Vin Diesel butting heads with him, and a lot of people are starting to see why now. The biggest one, though, and a lot of people are giving him a lot of shit for, is he was violating COVID protocols on set, and he would fly home no matter what, didn't give a shit because he had a private jet, and ended up actually getting COVID and spreading it on the set of one of the movies. I think it was Red Notice was the one for that one, or one of the other movies that was post 2020. But yeah, man, it's crazy. And if you go through the article, they bring they break down almost every incident. And I'm curious to see what you guys think. I know we only have 6 minutes, but I'll punt it off to Steve because I know he said he had a theory, and hopefully we have enough time to get Dom in for enough of what he has to say.
I'll be as quick as I possibly can here. My theory on this, you kind of alluded to it. I think he spread himself thin. And I think that you've seen this now with the tequila. Well, because I do remember when you brought that up, I do remember that being a story. I think you saw that with the tequila brand. I think the UFL, as it's known, the United Football League, when the USFL and XFL merged, I think that undertaking was a hell of a lot more than he envisioned. Not only because you cannot be Dwayne Johnson and be a silent partner on that. They want him front and center. And that league, from what I understand, is doing pretty good. Ratings wise, is doing pretty good. And the quality of football play has improved over the few years with these second-tier football leagues. But you can't be a silent partner and be Dwayne Johnson and expect to be in the background. They're going to want you in the foreground. Magic Johnson owns a part of the Washington Commanders. He's a big decision maker too. He's done press for the team too. You cannot be that big of a personality and lurk in the shadows. It doesn't work. That's number one. And then I think number two is, again, going back to now he's getting back into WrestleMania and he's starting to become a face of that again, like as it's almost like a Legacy sequel in real life over here. I think that a combination of these things, his commitment and still wanting to be a movie star, but have all these ventures, I think he's gonna like almost enter the LeBron phase of his career where like we're going to pay just as much attention to LeBron when he retires in 2 to 3 years as we did him as a player. And now it's starting to be where what he's known as is starting to overtake movie stardom now too. He's almost become big enough to the point where his ventures are going to have to take precedent over his film work. I'll leave Dom with the final word.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by this at all. I didn't know much about it, but I'm not really surprised by it. He's the type quadruple A person that's like, you can see it happening for sure. And I think Steve mercifully gave him the angle like, yeah, he's probably just spread himself thin, which actually I think I believe as well. That makes very much sense. But at the same time, it's the crafted figure of it, particularly being in Moana, right? But in other children's media and entertainment are geared towards kids. He has sculpted that personality in such a chiseled way, not in like good looking way, but like just how pinpoint and how very well PR polished it is. But I think actually that other side of him, which I always suspected, but that other side of him, I kind of started, turning on to when he gave like an interview on Fox News, where it's like, hey, how do you feel about like how America is and how politics are these days? And there's a very centrist way to approach that, where you say nothing, but you're very positive. In this sense, he kind of said nothing, but still came off very conservative at the same time too, which is very interesting how he's able to do that.
Yeah, after supporting Joe Biden as well, which was interesting.
Exactly. I mean, we're not going to get too much into politics here, but yes, his very first presidential endorsement was Joe Biden in 2020. Now he's backing away from that, which is interesting because it's the same two guys running for president. Right? If it was a different Republican, okay, whatever, but it's the same guy. Okay, whatever. But anyway, there's that angle, but the way he came off in that interview was it's very boomer-esque, and it's very like, he's rich and his visage is used in kind of like, very, let's say, libertarian points of view, where it's like, get your wealth by earning it, hustle, go hard, bada bada bada, where it's like, okay, but you're rich. Anyway, that's all beside the point. We've got 90 seconds. What I'm saying is that I'm not surprised by it. This is the first time hearing about it, but yeah, I think we're gonna see a lot more come out in that realm. Nothing heinous, but definitely like kind of prick mode, douche mode. I'll leave it there.
Well, this movie has ballooned now to $250 million budget. That's not even including the marketing. But the marketing campaign has already unintentionally started now. So there's going to be attention on this movie when it does come out. And I have since added it to the Sleepless schedule, too. So we will talk about this. At first, I thought it was a pun on Red Notice.
Yeah.
And I thought this was retroactive from what happened with Red Notice.
Prequel.
And then I'm like, oh no, this is a totally new movie that he's allegedly being a prick on the set of. But that's our show tonight. It was a loaded show, to say the very least. I'm almost amazed we're only 15 minutes over time here. But a great show. I will be out next week. I've got these two gentlemen covering a movie. It is Unfrosted, the Pop-Tart story. I will return here on the 15th of May to review Late Night with the Devil. So I will return in 2 weeks. These guys got you next week. You're in good hands with Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon. You will see me on May 15th. Yours truly on Sleepless with Steve.